If you're watching this video, you might just have started playing Rocket League very recently, or you are just thinking about starting playing it. And it's probable that you have asked yourself if you should play Rocket League with keyboard and mouse, or you should pull out the old Xbox 360 controller from the bottom drawer. We are going to discuss which are the pros and the cons of each device, which controller is best compared to others, if you finally choose to use a controller, and by the end of the video, you are going to know what is the best option for you. If you're just doing a quick search on Google, you will find that most Rocket League pros, and most of its player base too, use a controller, but there are some exceptions on the highest level. For example, RCS pros like Yuki or Steak, or top freestylers like Hankovic. So then, what's better? If we want to know why there's such a high percentage of Rocket League population using a controller, also in PC, we have to go back to 2008. Psyonix, a small indie company, just released a new concept game on PS3. It was PlayStation exclusive. Supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars. Maybe not the most marketable name, but it was the starting point for what had to come many years later. Being a PS3 exclusive, all its player base used controller. When Rocket League was released in 2015 on PC and PS4, being free for PlayStation Plus users, many of the original players came from PS3, and with them brought the ancient tradition of using controller for playing car soccer. There's also an old idea that driving games should be played with a controller instead of keyboard mouse because it gives better control on throttle and steering. But let's be honest here, Rocket League is not just a driving game. Before we jump into the pros and cons of each device, you need to know that the most common opinion between high-level players is that using a controller or using keyboard and mouse is 100% personal preference, so keep that in mind. Being good at the game won't be related to which device you use. Let's analyze why using keyboard and mouse might be the best option for you. Let's start with the pros. Reason number 1, you just don't have to invest on a new device. Most good quality controller costs around $50, so this must be the best option for your pocket. Reason number 2, if you are a PC gamer, you might just have not used a controller ever, so being used to the device will give you an obvious advantage and will make the learning process and the muscle memory building an easier task. Reason number 3 is just customization options. You can literally use any keybinds and any layout you want. You can even stop using the mouse and only use the keyboard if you want to. And last pro is that some mechanics are just way easier on KBM because when you have to use a specific directional key, you don't have much room for error. An example of this, and also one of the reasons some of the top freestylers are KBM players, is how easy and consistent stalls can be made. This is a very advanced mechanic and has very few real uses in competitive matches, so don't worry too much about it. On the con side, many people consider being limited to 8 directions a downside. This is not such a bad thing for steering on the ground, but for aerial control it's going to require more effort and precise button pushing to really be good at it. Not being able to precisely adjust your throttling is also something many people point out as a con. This is very noticeable when learning to dribble the ball on top of your car, but KBM players are completely capable of doing it too. And that's it for the cons. Crazy, isn't it? Anything else that you might be thinking like, oh, Rocket League doesn't seem like a game made for keyboard and mouse, it's more about feelings than actual facts behind it. Now, let's take a look at controller pros and cons. First pro is also how used you are to it. If you were a console player before, or you are just used to using a controller in shooter games for example, playing Rocket League with a controller is the most obvious choice. Some controls like throttling or steering are in theory more precise. Throttling at different speeds make learning dribble an easier process, and in my opinion, using a trigger for accelerating is also a more intuitive experience. Talking about steering, you have a 360-degree input with your joystick, and you can also adjust how much you move your joystick to make sharper turns. Many players say that aerial control is just easier with a controller. This is a double-edged sword though. Being able to be more precise increases the room for human mistakes. Bringing back the stall example, you have to put the joystick in a very specific direction to be able to stall, so any inaccurate joystick movement will just make you fail at performing the mechanic. Let's talk about the cons now. It's sad to say this, but I've just used too many controllers playing Rocket League, and they are just a huge investment for the average gamer. I've literally broken 5 controllers playing it. Rocket League is such an intense game that requires fast movements and button spam that many controllers just can't take it. From making the left joystick unusable to broken button switches and rusted triggers. Second con is the lack of customization. The amount of buttons a normal controller has is just sometimes not enough for choosing a layout that feels personal and comfortable at the same time. By the looks of it, it just seems that I'm recommending keyboard and mouse over controller, and to be honest, that's why I recommend my friends when they start playing the game for the first time. Using a controller will make you commit to a path in your Rocket League career that sometimes will be frustrating because of just and only the device itself. But what it's important for you to make a choice is knowing that it's 100% personal preference, and that you can get to the highest level being either a controller or a KBM player. If you're finally choosing to play with a controller, that's actually what I used to. Remember, I've just said how many controllers I've broken playing Rocket League? Well, let's start from the beginning. All controllers and cheap controllers won't last you long. All controllers like Xbox 360 and PS3 controllers will need some sort of adapter to use them in a computer. And it's just incredible how little time their joysticks have lasted on my hands. I broke a Thrustmaster GPX after less than 200 hours of playtime. Same happened to 3 original Xbox 360 controllers, and their joysticks actually lasted a shorter amount of time. One of the last controllers I got was a PDP Xbox controller. The buttons lasted 2 months, the joystick broke after 4 months. Original Xbox One controllers buttons and joysticks seem to not be very durable either, for what some friends have told me and I've read in some internet reviews. The other 2 options that there are left are PS4 Dualshock V2 and high-tier Thrustmaster controllers. I cannot talk about Thrustmaster, but their most used controller when it comes to Rocket League is the eSwap Pro, which is a very expensive, running 170 euros. And I only know 2 high MMR players that use it, so I wouldn't even consider it as an option unless you have hundreds of hours in Rocket League and you are really committed to it. The best controller in my opinion, and it seems that in others' opinions too, being the most used controller by the vast majority of Rocket League player base, also in PC, is the PlayStation 4 Dualshock V2. Having used Xbox controller before, and being used to their button layout, joystick position and trigger shape, I have to say that the first weeks I tried the DualShock it felt a bit odd, but after some time using it, I only got good things to say about this controller. Way more responsive, better sensors, more quality product overall. Finally, for the question what is better for Rocket League, controller or keyboard and mouse, the answer is very simple. Both are good. It doesn't matter. Use the one that you want to use, simple as that. Don't feel any pressure of having to buy a controller because everyone around you tells you that Rocket League is supposed to be played with a controller. That's just not true. Play with anything you want. Finally, remember that I stream every day on Twitch. You can join and ask any doubt that you got about the game. Also, you can join my community on Discord. You'll find all the links down in the description. I really hope this video has been useful for you. Thank you so much for your time and see you soon.